So I've said it for a while. We're in the bot versus bot era of hiring. Look, we're using it. We're excited about using it. At least HR tech vendors are. Candidates are as well. And there's a lot of talk about what's acceptable and what isn't. But the truth is, unless you spell it out and lay it out clearly, it's up to whoever, right? It's so there's very few, there's a lot of chatter online of what candidates are doing. Is it ethical? If it's unethical, all of that. But there's very little policies of what companies are expecting. I've actually only found, and this is after many searches and a lot of conversation, because I have an upcoming podcast episode about this. So after a lot of research, I only found that Greenhouse is one of the only organizations who has a clear guidelines, and it's on their careers website. It's like how you use AI. Most companies are saying, no, you can't use AI for interviews. No, you can't use AI for your resume and things like that. And they're even going the step of disqualifying people who they find are using AI. But the thing is, you can't really disqualify candidates for using AI if you haven't told them what's acceptable. And simply saying don't use AI is not realistic in today's world. It really isn't. And also, why not go the step further and explain to candidates how you're using it? Because that transparency is also something that candidates want to know, and it's really going to differentiate you. So, like I said, I've been obsessing about this topic. I'm so excited for that podcast episode that's coming out about it. And we're talking about both the ethical and unethical ways that candidates are using AI for their interviews. I loved how Greenhouse took the stance, and this is me summarizing their policy. Like, look, we know you guys are using it. We're using it too. You can use it for prepping. Amazing. We love that. Don't use it to feed you questions or answers to interview questions live.
Mm.
Great. If they catch someone doing that, they can, in all their right, say, you're disqualified because we laid this out clearly. So that's kind of like, I obviously, I think at some point we're going to have conversations of what should these policies include and what should they not include. But I think right now the first step should be, let's actually have a policy. So is it trending? Is it ending? I think it should and it must stick. Without clear, realistic guidelines, we're really heading into muddy waters, where there's going to be bias, there's going to be inequity, there's going to be a lot of confusion, because a lot of what I read of people's solutions to candidates using AI is really taking us back years and years of what we've already done. So I'm interested to know in the chat, does your company have an AI use policy for candidates, and what is it? And Matt, what do you think?
Before I tell you, shout out to Tom there for his very kind feedback about the show. Hi, Tom. How are you? Good to see you. What do I think about it? This is yeah. First of all, I think you are absolutely spot on. It's like, how do you disqualify someone for using something that it's not illegal to use? There is a huge debate about, ethics and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not very clear about what that means, then you're right. And I think it's interesting. So I think that's one part of it. I think the second part of it is, how do you know? And I say that because I've seen a couple of examples from academia, actually. Someone at a school who had an essay, refused because they were accused of using AI, and they hadn't. But because that particular school was looking for those kind of phrases that ChatGPT uses all the time, and that particular student had done an essay that was of a better quality than they normally did, so they presumed there was an assumption they were using AI. They weren't. And likewise, again, I was reading about someone writing their master's dissertation, and someone used AI, didn't get caught, got the degree, felt felt bad about it. Someone didn't, and then was accused of doing it. So I think there's a bit about, well, how do we know? And then I think there's the bit about this whole definition. It's like, is this cheating? Is this not cheating? Where do we draw the line? Is getting someone to feed you the answers to interview questions that are not your, things you don't know about, that feels like cheating. But I think people will have different views on this. It's a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I that's why I think it's really, you have to be clear about it. But you bring up a great point. Like, how do you know if people are using it? Because a lot of what I've seen, the discussions online are like, well, it's easy to know if a candidate's reading these answers, they'll sound robotic. But then what about neurodiverse candidates who
Absolutely, yeah.
speak in a way that you might perceive as robotic, but that's just how they speak. And like you said, we can see anytime someone posts like, oh, anytime someone uses this in their post, I know it's ChatGPT, and so many times I felt like ChatGPT came to steal like my emoji use. Like, go back to my post from
Yeah.
2019, and I was using the emojis.
And
ChatGPT
no one can
stole
ever
it,
use the phrase "let's dive in" ever again because it's instant
right?
ChatGPT.
And then every one of my podcast episodes used to start with like blah 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 intro, and then let's dive in. Now
Yeah.
I can't say that.
Exactly, exactly. And also we just, we get to this arms race point where everyone is using better AI to catch out everyone else's AI. So, fundamentally, I think this is trending in terms of people need to define what they mean. But I think it's also ending because we just need to rethink recruitment in terms of how do we actually assess people in a way that's appropriate for the job that they're going to do. And I think that's a fundamental thing. There are cultural norms and overstories about recruitment and how recruitment works, and this challenges that, and that makes this a kind of a really big deal. But do you think that's ultimately the answer to this?
Yeah, that's really the answer, and it's funny that you positioned it that way because in everything that, like, that's how I wrapped up that episode that I was talking about, saying at the end of the day, you really have to focus on how you're evaluating people and not so much on how people are showing up to interviews. I gave examples of things where this had happened. Standings for interviews. I work in tech. That's where I recruited the bulk of my career. That has been happening for a while, way before AI. Like, I had that happen for in-person interviews, and I'm thinking, "You're absolutely not the same person that was here." Like, I'm not, like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
But that's been happening. People are going to do it. So you really have to double down on how you evaluate.
Absolutely. I remember back when I had a proper job, I was running a digital team in an agency, and we had a freelancer in who'd come from a very reputable agency to come and help us with a particular technical problem that we had. And he was kind of working away, and then we looked over and he had the kind of the how-to manual in his desk that he was pulling out and reading because he didn't actually understand what he was supposed to be doing. And that, he would have got through, whatever face-to-face screening process that agency had, and all this kind of stuff. So as you say, it has been happening for a really, for a really long time. And yeah, I suppose it's just I think, going back to that point about defining this, I know that certain graduate recruiters, college recruiters in the UK kind of came out and said, we ban you from using AI in the application. It's like, what does that mean? I'm using a spell checker that's got AI
Exactly.
in it. I'm using this that's got an AI in it. What does that do? And I think I think it's probably moving the mindset away from, AI writes stuff for you to AI can help you do really complicated tasks very quickly and get a better outcome that really uses your skills to do that. Isn't it?
Yeah, and that's always been my approach, especially working with technical hiring managers and stuff. It's like, okay, so what? They Googled the answer. Is that so wrong? Their ability to find the answer is really what you should be evaluating, not do they have the answers? Because especially in technical fields, things change so quickly that it's impossible to know all of the answers or what's going to be happening. Like, what you know today is outdated tomorrow. So the core competency of knowing how to find answers and using resources, that's what you should be evaluating. And I think that applies
Yeah.
to every type of job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's interesting that there was a sort of case in point with a big retailer in the UK earlier in the year that went out and said, you know what, we're going to give everyone the interview questions in advance because we think that's good from a neurodiversity perspective, et cetera, et cetera. And there was this huge kind of media, it became this big media story as this, what are they? This is incredible. This is ridiculous. And again, it's that ingrained view about how people think recruitment should work. And I think this AI thing sort of plays into that, and that's why it sort of stirs up so much commentary and emotion. It's yeah, interesting, Interesting times. Rona, thank you very much. As again, another interesting topic. So I'm going to say trending, but hopefully ending.
I like
That's my
that.
kind of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you.